All right, so we are back with another edition of Friends of Constructed Adventures. Today I am joined by, and I'm going to mess this up, Jachin Letwory. He is a treasure hunt creator from the Netherlands. We are going to talk about basically how everything was pre and post pandemic in the Netherlands in this industry. We've both built two fun little music themed puzzles because he's also a guitar teacher and a music teacher. And we're going to talk just about puzzles, design, treasure hunt experiences. So if you have any questions, feel free to add in the comments. If you have any questions, we'll add those in later. But what I'd love to do first is I'm going to bring in Jachin and I'm going to have him talk a little bit about what he does, also the correct way to pronounce his name. So without further ado, Jachin.
Hi, Chris. Nice to be here. And I think you almost had it right. My name it's Jachin Letwory, and I think I heard something like that. So that's very good. And as you said, I'm also a guitar teacher or a musician. And what I did is, I think 1.5 hour ago, I stopped. I had my last pupil for this season. So I'm now on vacation. I've got 6 weeks off, so I can do a lot of fun stuff with creating treasure hunts. So that's very nice. And what I did before starting this treasure hunt business is I had a best friend, and he was going to get married, and I tried to create a Jason Bourne day for him, because what we always do is watch Jason Bourne movies, and I, for one or another reason, I can watch them all the time and just keep getting what what they are all about. And I thought, well, that's a nice thing to do, and actually, it was really nice for me to create that. So I thought I have to do something with that, and me being a business owner, I can have some time spent creating those treasure hunts, and from there on, I build up the business.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And so I guess the first thing I would love to chat about is just, and I do want to get back to the Jason Bourne movies because mine is very inspired by, and I'll show myself full on screen, National Treasure. And you can see I have a bunch of replicas of the Declaration of Independence right over
Mhm.
here, as well as the Bill of Rights. And I have done quite a few adventures that have been themed like that, where somebody had to steal the Declaration of Independence. And so I do want to hear about that. But first and foremost, I would love to hear about what is the industry like? What was the industry like in the Netherlands pre-COVID? So before this pandemic happened, were there a lot of escape rooms? Were there a lot of people doing what you do?
Yeah, and the escape room business is, I think, is really booming, and I think I saw a number of escape rooms last year that there are more than 800 escape rooms in this tiny country.
Oh, wow.
And I think one of those is the best of the world. And actually, I was planning last Sunday to go there with three friends, but because of COVID, we decided not to go. We were allowed to go and then wear masks, and we couldn't be close to each other. So we said, okay, just get a rain check and have to wait till things cool down a little bit. And I hope to go there for sure, because it's supposed to be a very good one.
Hmm.
But because of the COVID, all those escape rooms had to switch, and they have to think creatively and try to make money other ways. And I think you can also say that a lot of escape rooms worldwide started creating, I call it escape games, treasure hunts, or whatever.
Hmm.
And they popped up like crazy on the internet. So I thought I was one of the few at first in the Netherlands, and then now I'm one of many.
One of many. Yes, that has been basically what's happened, and it's the tricky thing with escape rooms now that we're realizing with the pandemic that it it's mostly spread by people coughing and breathing. It's a little bit less touch. It's a little
Mhm.
bit more air particles and breathing. And so restaurants are kind of allowed to be open if you're outside. Right now, a lot of the big states in the US are completely shutting down. The states that didn't listen, Arizona, Texas, Florida, they're the ones that are in huge trouble. But I have heard of a couple escape rooms that are opening back up. But I wouldn't go to one anytime soon, just because there are so many touch points of things you have to grab and twist and move and push and pull, and like how do you sanitize that whole thing? And then you get a group of people that are all in a room together. I'm fine wearing a mask. I wear a mask every time I leave the house, but I'm usually not
Hmm.
leaving the house for very often. And I don't know if I would want to wear one in a small room with 4 to 10 other people. I think that could be really tricky. But I did recently do a digital version of an escape room. I was lucky enough to beta test a room, and I'll see if I can look that up really quickly while we're chatting later. And it was a lot of fun. I did it with Michelle and Yassine, not to be
Yeah,
confused
I
with
know them.
Yachin
Yeah.
from the Society of Curiosities, as well as Cece, and I can't remember her husband's name, but they're escape room reviewers. And it was wild because they had a person running the escape room that had a cell phone with Zoom on like a mount on their chest. And then we
Yeah.
essentially told them what to do, and when we told them what to do, like when we found a journal, she's like, okay, well, in the website portal, type in journal, and now you can see on your screen all the things in the journal. And so it kind of worked. It wasn't the same experience, but I wouldn't really expect it to be, because it just it's it's very different to be able to look and see and register things with your brain and not like hope that the person is pointing the camera in the right direction.
Yeah. And you had only one camera?
Yeah,
There
so
was just one person? Oh, okay.
well, there was one camera, and then it was a like we had a 3D model of the room on a website. So I'm lucky I have this screen and I have
Ah,
another screen, and so I'm watching the camera and all of us, and then on the other screen I could see the 3D model of the room that I could kind of look around in, and then I also had like oh, you found a telephone, and like you could look at a close-up picture of the telephone and see, one of the
very good.
puzzles was a number letter puzzle, right, where the letters were based off the numbers that are on a telephone. So like a 1 is like, ABC, and a 2 is DEF, or however that plays out.
Mhm.
And so it allowed
Yeah.
us to do that. And so altogether it worked, but it was still tricky because some of the things they have where it's like you have to find 6 pieces that all fit together, and 4 or 5 of them are behind a locked door, but the sixth one is just like kind of tucked away somewhere, and it really is just an observation puzzle, just being aware. And we would have found
Yeah.
it immediately if we'd been in the room, but because we're looking through this camera, it was the final thing that we really couldn't see,
Yeah.
and so it made it tricky.
A little bit too difficult to see the small details. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm going to back up really quickly. Talk to me about
Hmm.
how you started Modern Treasure Hunt. And talk to me about Jason Bourne. I want to hear about the first adventure.
Yeah. Okay. So my best friend, what we always did is, if we were living close by or further apart, then once in a while we just uh, uh, had a night where we sat on the couch, watched Jason Bourne, 1, 2, or 3 movies. They had a lot of M&Ms, and then when he was getting married, as I told you, then I thought just making him a nice bachelor party. And what I did is, actually, he lives in Amsterdam, so that's a well-known name, I guess,
Hmm.
worldwide. And I'm living in Zwolle, and that's like 1.5 hours away. And when I thought, okay, I make this treasure hunt in Zwolle because that's more easy. And I had 2 little kids, so they had to drive several days with me through the city to to explore all those nice um, places which we were going to visit. And actually, it ended up really nice. He had a lot of fun, and the final answer was a code where we could go to the nearest escape room. So we had something like Treasure Hunt Jason Bourne themed scavenger hunt, or how you can call it. And then finally we went to an escape room. So that was really nice, and I had so much fun that I thought, okay, I have to do more with it. And um, well, as I told you, I'm a guitar teacher, but I'm also a PE teacher. So I'm not teaching right now, but I've been teaching for large groups of children, and I know a lot of games, how you can
Yeah.
um, entertain those kids. And I just uh, uh, took the creative part of the guitar lessons and the physical part of the PE teacher, and then combined that together. And I thought, okay, let's make a treasure hunt business.
So I have to ask, do you have a game that is the most favorite game? Because I used to be an athletics director for boys and girls clubs and YMCA's, which are kind of the popular after-school spots for kids. And we had a couple games that were just the go-to games. And so do you have a game that just
Yes, of
works,
course.
that is the most
Yeah,
fun?
and in Dutch it's called trefbal, and in English, well, actually, there's a movie called
Dodgeball?
Dodgeball. Yeah, it's Dodgeball.
Ah. So
Dodgeball.
is
So
it
much fun.
your standard, just kids on each side throwing dodgeballs at each other?
Yeah, and then sometimes changing the rules a little bit. If it's getting boring, then change it a little bit. They can do more or less depending on
Yeah.
how it's.
So when I was in, this is deviating very far, but I love this anyway. When I was working as an athletics director for the Boys and Girls Club, I started a dodgeball league. And how do you pronounce it in Dutch?
Trefbal.
Oh gosh, Tiechtbal?
Tref. Trefbal.
Tiechtbal. Wow. That is
Dodgeball is more easy.
yeah, dodgeball's not easy to say either. And so it started with regular dodgeball, where there was teams of five on five, and there was the balls in the middle. And if you hit your opponent or catch their ball, then they're out. And if you catch a ball, then one of your team members back in. That's kind of the standard way in the U.S. Is that how it is in the Netherlands?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And then we added another level that we called medic, which is kind of based on like a medic from like the military, like to revive someone. So each team had one medic on either side. And if you got hit or an opponent caught your ball, you just had to take a knee where you were. And if your medic tagged you back in, then you were back in. So the goal was to draw the medic out from the back and then knock the medic out and then take out the rest of the team. But it quickly deviated. We had there are a ton of different dodgeball games. If you've ever, I don't know if you've looked into it, but there was one that we created called Poison Ball, which was basically paintball, where we set up bunkers all throughout the gymnasium, and there was no boundary. So teams started on either wall, and it was basically like running all around the gym trying to hit each other and like hiding behind bunkers. Gosh, one of them was called Predator, where you had like a whole bunker, like an area on the outside of the gymnasium on the basketball court, and then all the teams were on the inside trying to hit these players as they tried to do laps around the gym. But they had different places they could hide behind, so they're constantly like running to try to duck behind these. And that was really fun because it really catered toward the smallest kids, which usually dodgeball is like the strongest kids, the strongest, fastest kids are going to win because they can throw harder or catch better.
Throw hard. Yeah.
But Predator was great because like the smallest kids were the MVPs because they were hardest to hit, and so they were able to do so many laps, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, it sounds like dodgeball is kind of a universal, like loved game.
Well, actually, I have a little bit of a funny story because you said medics from the military, and I was like 4 months in the military myself. And
you've just done everything.
And then one day we went to another place where they had to do training or whatever, and we started playing dodgeball. And normally, when you do it with kids, you have maybe a softer ball, and you're not allowed to do the very. You only can throw like this and not too fast and whatever. But then they said, okay, we are going to use the basketball, and we're going to use 3 of them. So they were all the time everywhere, and they hit you really hard everywhere.
We in the U.S. a lot of schools and programs changed. They're called gator balls, like alligator, GATOR, and they're they're foam, but they have like this plastic on the outside, and so you can't. Yeah, I'm sure you're aware. You can throw them pretty hard, but they don't really hurt. But oh my gosh, you hurt your elbow because there's nothing.
You have to throw really hard.
Yeah, you have to fling them. And so we used to play, and the adults would always end up having to ice their elbows afterwards because they just hurt them so bad. And that's how the kids eventually won, is they'd wear us down, so we're throwing them like just we could barely do it. Oh man. Yeah. So you were a music teacher and you decided to do a Jason Bourne Day. Now, with this Jason Bourne Day, Were you with your friend, the bachelor, or were you kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes? Like how did the actual structure of the day work?
Yeah. Well, actually, I was just joining the group, and I knew, of course, what they had to do, but I just walked with them, and if I thought something needed some help, then I could just get them some help.
Yeah.
And for me, it was the first time, so I just Googled a little bit about how can you do some puzzles, and I put a Sudoku in it, and then some other guy, he was joining the group, and he has an escape room, and he said, "Oh, it's not done. You can not do a Sudoku anymore." And finally, I found out you can use, of course, a Sudoku if it fits the story. And I don't think Jason Bourne is doing a lot of Sudokus
No.
while hunting the bad guys.
No. And that's the tricky part, right? Is I'm always talking about with clients, and especially right now. You talk about how you and a lot of other people have created like a digital something or something that can be purchased. I actually just got this one's Legend Game of Maps, and I'm kind of hyped. I haven't started playing it yet, but it's very treasure map esque.
Nice.
I ended up
Yeah.
switching over to consultation. That's what my focus was, and creating, basically helping people build something small. And one of the things I talk about is everything has to make sense. There has to be a reason why they're doing this. And so if you're doing something where you're hunting a killer, the puzzles can't be this outward solve this word search or Sudoku. It has to be like the killer made a mistake, or you could do something like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Zodiac Killer, was a famous
Hmm.
thing in the US where he left
Yeah.
puzzles. Granted, they were
In
so
the paper,
they
in
were
the
so
newspaper.
yeah they were so
Yeah.
insane that or so cryptic that they just couldn't be broken, which is not what you want to do. But yeah, and so it's so tricky because you get those people that are like, I want to do something that's like I'm hunting a killer. And then it's like, man, we are removing a ton of possible options. I chatted with Justin Nevins, who designs cryptexes,
Hmm.
and it's like
Yes. No.
you can't have a cryptex in something where you're hunting a killer. I mean, maybe you could have the story where it's like it's their prized possession and they dropped it, but it's like if it's their prized possession, would they really leave it behind? And so you have all these holes that it creates with Jason Bourne, and like, how do you find this thing? How do you get it? Do you ever run into that with some of the adventures that you build where people want this, they want two things, but there's no way you can have both of those things together?
Yeah. So right now, well, I started with the custom treasure hunt, if you can call it like that, the Jason Bourne experience. And if I look back at it, it's not very good, but they still had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing right now is actually more creating treasure hunts that's for um, reselling, so other people can also play it. Then, so I have the total control of what the story is about, and then I can make the puzzles more fit the story.
So are
So
you building? Let's actually talk about what you're doing now. Because you talked about how, is it a digital hunt or is it a treasure hunt in a box? I saw these two things on your website.
well, I've got this one in the back. That is the VOC treasure, and VOC stands for um, the Dutch East India Company.
Ooh.
And I think in America, it's the other part of the company was called the West India Company, and those were the ships roaming the seas and trying to get as much wealth
I remember
and bring
it.
it
I remember the
back.
East India Trading Company was the wealthiest company in the world at one point in
Yes.
time, and I've seen like the different, like, obviously inflation and money, and it might still be the most wealthy company of all time. I don't know where Amazon stands or if it's past it
I
yet.
don't know if I don't know if they still exist, but what I always do is I do a ton of research on the internet, and nowadays it's really easy because you have those archives in every country, and if you know how to find them and how to use them, you can find really nice stuff. And actually, that's how my uh, oh, I think my telephone thinks I'm talking to Siri. Um, the game for the VOC treasure. Um, was built upon this page, the story of this page.
Oh wow.
And it's from a real old book, and probably you can't read it because it's old German,
Hmm.
and I wasn't planning on building this treasure hunt. I was actually researching my roots because I've got an Indonesian background, and Indonesia was the big country which the VOC colonized, the Dutch people colonized. And I was just researching this really tiny small island. Uh, it exists out of one volcano, and my grandfather lived there.
Hmm.
And then I found this page, and it said something like there was a ship sank to the bottom of the ocean, if I translate it right. And then I underlined it, and
Hmm.
I thought, okay, just keep it somewhere in my mind, and then maybe someday I'm going to do something with it. And well, actually, that turned out to be a treasure hunt. And the really nice thing is, and maybe I should talk about it more on the website. But people who play it and they actually find the name of the ship, the name of the captain, the name of the island where the ship sank to the bottom of the ocean, that's real. The only thing that's not real is the treasure, because I had to put the treasure inside, and maybe it's there, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
And most of the time, people who play this game, they send me a WhatsApp message with some nice pictures, and when they find the final answer,
Hmm.
then I reply to them and I say, okay, if you go on vacation to Indonesia and you're going to do some snorkeling, visit that island and try to find the ship because it's there. If I don't know if it's still looking good or it's
Yeah.
totally broken apart, but it's there.
Oh, that's
So that's what I try to do. Most of the time, I try to research a real story,
mhm.
find some nice materials, and then build a treasure hunt around it.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fun. I'm currently working. I have an opportunity to do something here. Actually, just I'm in Portland, Oregon, and
Hmm.
it's in Washington. Um, it's like some people have a property and they want to build like a treasure hunt on the property and some hiking trails. That's actually a really cool thing. We're in the very beginning of it, but I've been working with my twin brother who's a designer to try to figure out the story. And it's been really, really fun researching and working through that story. The problem that we're running into is a lot of the things that we could use are a little bit dicey. So Lewis and Clark were two people that kind of explored the United States, like they're like way, way back in the day. But there's a lot of turmoil in the United States, and Lewis and the Clark probably were not the best of people because we're realizing a lot of founding fathers were owned slaves and all these things. And so
Hmm.
as a creator now, when we're trying to find something that ties in with history, we have to make sure that we're not using some figurehead or symbol that was a horrible person, right? Like Christopher Columbus for the longest time, we have Columbus Day here. And now everybody's like, no, Christopher Columbus, like, we don't want to idolize him anymore. He was a terrible person. And so it's funny, not funny, but it's tricky from a creator standpoint, trying to make sure that you come up with something that actually fits into history, because that's more fun when it has its grounds in something that actually happened, like a shipwreck. But you also can't skew too far where you're idolizing or making somebody who was a horrible person out to be this great person. And then,
Yeah.
once again, making it factually work, right? Where you can't have a Sudoku in an old, East India Trading Company puzzle, right? Or a Jason Bourne puzzle, because that just wouldn't make sense. You have to make you have to make everything work, which is
And I
fun
think
and tricky.
yeah, that's also the fun part of the work, doing all those, first doing all those research,
Hmm.
and then you find something you think, okay, that's a good angle for a story,
Yeah.
for a treasure hunt, and then and I think you talked about it also. Then I start with the end,
Yep.
and then I work from the beginning and try to, well, make all the dots and how I can connect them with good puzzles.
Yeah.
And well, the one behind me,
Hmm.
um, because that's my, I think, third or fourth treasure hunt, and I did some in my local city.
Hmm.
So that's an outdoor treasure hunt, and then this is my first indoor treasure hunt. But I had a little bit of experience, and actually, well, it worked really well.
Yeah.
And what I did is I found like 5 or 6 pieces in the archives that are from that period of time or around that period of time, but they look like they are from that period of time. And then I just looked at the materials and I thought, okay, how can I make this into a puzzle? And well, I think that's yeah a big part of the fun for me.
Yeah. That's so. Let's talk a little bit about your puzzles. So these puzzles, are they in Dutch? What language are they? Can I play from the U.S. or is it pretty much specific to
Yeah.
your area?
Well, the first edition of this game was in Dutch,
Hmm.
and then I think last year in June, I had a Kickstarter
Hmm.
just to be able to translate it in English, and I think somewhere I hope to do it this year. I'm going to translate it in German as well
Hmm.
because that's a very big neighbor country of us.
Yeah.
And I'm planning on doing a Kickstarter as well for the German part, but I'm not sure yet because I've got most most parts already translated. But as you can imagine, all those boxes and bottles and
Yeah.
one map is printed on fabric, so
Hmm.
it's really expensive to create hundreds of boxes right away. So I
Yeah.
need I need some Kickstarter.
So it's interesting, and I do want to chat a little bit about the language and the wordplay. But with Kickstarter, Kickstarter has become the way that creatives and board games do something without having to go through a publishing company that's going to take a huge cut. And we could. I'm sure you've talked to Rita. Or Rita's now. She has just finished, and Rita does
Yes,
Post Curious.
great website. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Uh, but you know, having Kickstarter be able to fund you, having your actual fans and the people who want to support fund what you're going to do, so you don't have to borrow a bunch of money from a bank or from some big company that's going to take 50, 60%. I don't know what the cut that Kickstarter takes, but I would imagine it's not the
I think
same.
it's 8%. I think it's 8%, and
8%.
then maybe a little bit of the uh, transaction fee also. It's not too much. Maybe in total
Yeah.
10%.
It's
Not
it's
sure.
still it's tricky because 10%'s a lot, but I would imagine if you're going to go through like Mattel or some actual company, it's going to be a lot more than that. And so it's a great way that you see like Spotify and SoundCloud was for artists, where artists don't need to have big companies back them. They can do it with the internet. So the internet has become this great equalizer, and it's so wonderful to have
Yeah.
those. Now, do you have any puzzles that involve any kind of wordplay? Because that's the thing that's always tricky. And I ran into this one time. I did a puzzle for, it was in Arizona, and it was for a large group of people, and a lot of them were Spanish speaking only. And so I started with things where there was wordplay, and then I was like, oh, wait, I can't. Everything has to be very clear and very specific to make sure that nothing gets, wires don't get crossed. And English is a very tricky language anyway, because you have a lot of words that sound exactly the same with completely different meanings.
Yeah.
How has that been?
Well, I think maybe unconsciously I created all those puzzles that I could translate it really well. What I did, and a lot of Dutch people like it, and I haven't heard any bad um, replies about it. But what I did is I had a logic puzzle at the end, and the logic puzzle was you had to find four captains of ships, four ships, four islands, and four types of treasures. And all those, that's in total, is it 16? Yeah, 16 pieces you have to find in all the materials. You can find those 16 pieces, and then you have to put those names in the logic puzzle, and then you can solve the whole puzzle. And because it's all names, it was really easy because I didn't have any, well, word puzzles, or how do you call that? Wordplay puzzles. So for me, it was really easy to translate, and that's why I know I can translate it also in German or Spanish, whatever language.
Oh,
But that's nice. And for the next projects, I'm going to do it similar because then I know I can translate it to other languages as well. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, cool. So we have built two little puzzles. I'm going to go first if that's okay, mostly because
Yes.
I think that yours is a little bit more complex than mine. Mine is quite simple once you figure it out. since Yasin is, or yeah,
Jachin.
Jachin. Oh my gosh, I will get it eventually. Jachin. Since Jachin is a music teacher, as you can tell behind me, I'm a musician. I'm actually mostly a drummer. I'm a percussionist, but I also have a couple ukuleles. Every time I go to Hawaii, I pick up one. I started in college just playing like Lady Gaga songs and Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and then got a little bit more serious. And then since then, I kind of play. But every time I go to Hawaii, I pick up one because why would you not? So I'm going to start with mine. Mine is a simple puzzle where what I want you to do, and I'm actually going to try to type this up really quick. Find the password. So I have a password I want you to tell me.
Yes.
It is a 4-letter password. And I actually got this idea a long time ago from Scooby-Doo, weirdly enough. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up here, I'm going to put a ukulele chord chart. So you can actually see, this is a ukulele chord chart, and if you look, what you'll see is basically the chords line up to the fretboard. So if you look, you'll see, an A minor is right here. So that's an A minor if I press this 1, or actually might be this side, but we will find out. So yeah, this is an A minor.
That's an A minor.
Yes, which you can actually see, and I'm worried this might be, oh no, that's correct. So this is an A minor. And so the dots line up to where my fingers go. So what's going to happen is I'm going to play 4 chords, and you're going to have to figure out what the password is. So just with this,
Okay.
let me make sure I've got this correct. So I'll play that very slowly, and it's tricky because you can't quite see my fingers, but you have to get an idea, right?
Yeah, I know that one. Yes.
Oh, I actually did it wrong. Hold on, I made a mistake. Oh, I got it backwards. Let's try it again.
It sounded nice.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Again? No? Yeah, I think I've got it. Let me play it also, and I can.
Yeah, let me.
Do you have a capo? No, you don't. Oh.
Could also.
So I know the first one.
So you know the first letter.
That's A.
Okay, so the first letter is an A, and I'll type this out as we get it. Okay, and
Yeah. And the second one is a C.
okay, so we got A, and the second one is I'm adding this to the screen. C.
And the last one is a D.
Okay.
The third one.
Third one's tricky, but we might be able to get it by context, right? If it's a 4-letter word.
I thought it was an A minor or a B, but if it's an A minor, you have 2 letters.
That is not an A minor. And let me play it in a different way. This is one way. Let me see if I can.
Oh, it's an E.
Ah, there we go.
I play it like this, with 3 fingers, and you play it with a barré.
Yes, I like Bo, the last one. So let's add this letter
okay.
in.
So we have A, C, E, D.
And so this is a great way if you wanted to encode a message. I remember with Scooby-Doo, it was on a piano and they used sheet music. But it's a very simple, puzzle, almost a cipher, right? It's almost a cipher more than it's a puzzle. It's tricky. I'm never quite sure where to say, like, this is a puzzle and this is just decoding a message. But the reason this is fun is because it takes letters or a message, as in like aced, and it puts it into a different format. And so most people are familiar with music notes, and most people know that it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Oh my gosh, I almost like, is there one after G? And so what I ended up doing was I typed in A, B, C, D, E, F, G twice into a Scrabble word finder. and it gave me a bunch of words that I could use. And so when we talked about having let me remove these letters real quick. When we talked about having starting with the ending, what I started with was I said, okay, it's going to be the rules that Jachin gave me. Am I getting it right, Jachin?
Yes, Jachin. Yeah,
Jachin,
it's okay.
yes. That Jachin gave me was it's got to be with the ukulele. So I was like, well, it makes sense that I would do some type of password. I'm very, very much so password oriented because, I'll give somebody a cryptex and then eventually they'll have to find the password that they can use to open it. I'm going to just do this so you can get that feel of opening this. So you get the password correct and there's, a message inside. In this case, I think it's just the cryptex instructions, but I leave them there because I'm not going to lose them. And so I was looking for a 5-letter password, and unfortunately I didn't find too many words that kind of went, but aced is like you ace a test, like I aced that test. So that's the term, like if you ace something in English, it's like you do really, really well. And if you aced something, it means you did great on trying to achieve something. So I looked for a password that could be that kind of fun, like you did it, you got it, aced. And then obviously it had to fall within those letters. So using Scrabble Word Finder is a great tool. And most people use it to cheat in Scrabble, which maybe we've all used that before if you've played Scrabble. But it is very, very handy when you're trying to figure out how to make something with letters that you already have letters or you're using constraints. And so then it was just kind of a fun thing. If I wanted to make it even harder, I could just have an audio file of me playing those 4 chords correctly the second time. And then maybe a separate audio file of like, this is an A, this is a B, this is a C, this is a D. And so they have to use their ear to get like, okay, that's a note, that's an A note, and that's this. And that's where puzzles kind of come from, right? Where you create that gap, and the gap is figuring out the note to the letter. And then Reed actually put this really nicely. And then you play test to figure out like how much of a gap. And a lot of it has to do with the level of instructions. If I was going to do a puzzle hunt for somebody for you, I would literally just give you an audio recording of me just playing that. No instructions, no nothing else. Find the password would be it. But for people, and if you're going to build an escape room, you absolutely have to have the answer. So the chord chart has to be posted somewhere. You have to have, either another audio file. So they're saying this is what these notes are, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But it's got to figure that out.
Or you have a slow motion of your hands playing the chords, and then you're really how do you call that? Close up, and then slow motion, so they can see which finger positions you use for the chords. That's also a way, because some people find it hard to hear what kind of tones or chords they hear. So that's really, could be difficult. What I did is I also created one for you, because you also play the ukulele. And I was thinking about, if you make a puzzle, it's most of the time you have to think that the other person doesn't know anything about this subject. In your case, you know it, but in other cases, I don't know if someone is watching now and doesn't know how to play ukulele. Maybe the people from Hawaii, they do, but maybe the other people, they don't. And then what you said, you have a chart.
I'll post this up.
Together with the real puzzle, you have to combine it, and then, well, you find the answer. You can solve the puzzle. So you have this also somewhere, and you can share it with the people, right?
Yep. It's up on the screen right now, and you're just slightly right in between. If you can scoot to your right, just a hair. Oh, I'm worried I might have lost you. Looks like. Oh, there we go. Perfect. It froze for a quick second. And now to your left a tiny bit, and you'll be right in between. Perfect. You're right there. So on to your right, I have the ukulele song called Ugly Song, Clear Message. And then to your left, which is screen right, I have the chord chart, which is very similar to the chart that I posted. One thing of note is capo +1 means that you put a capo, which is a bar, on the first fret, and so it basically raises the octave up. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, do you have any instructions for this, or am I on my own here?
Yeah, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some instructions, and one of the instructions is that in this shot somewhere, there's another clue you can use.
I see it.
Uh,
Capo equals Caesar.
yes,
CSAR.
capo equals Caesar, and I guess that people who are into the puzzles know what it means.
Yes, I'm
That
going to
is
assume.
Caesar, and you know it for sure because I've heard it in some before.
So, I'm assuming you're
And
talking about a Caesar cipher. Is that correct?
yes, yeah,
Ah.
that's a Caesar cipher. And actually, what you no, maybe I'm not telling anything now. You
Uh-huh.
can have a quick look, and if I think you're going in the really wrong direction, I'm gonna give you a little hint.
Okay. So the capo equals a Caesar cipher, which would lead me to believe that everything is tuned up a notch, just like a Caesar cipher means there's a shift up. So my assumption would be that A now equals B, G7 might equal F7. Am I somewhere correct here that it basically
Yeah,
means there's a
almost.
shift?
But yeah, almost. If you do that, then it will take a long time to solve to solve to solve this puzzle. Um, Actually, what you have to do first is get to solve the puzzle in these two
Yep.
without the capo one, and after that you have to
Then you
use
have to move it up. So I have to solve the puzzle and
first.
then shift. So figure
Then
out and then shift it
yeah,
over.
because otherwise shifted it a little bit, and then you've got an answer, a three-letter answer, and then you have to shift it.
So I'm going to end up getting a three-letter answer and then have to shift. Now, forgive me. Is there a reason for the lines between G7 and then B minor and then also C
Yes,
and B7?
yes,
Is
yeah.
that a? Oh man,
It's how do you call it? It's a bar.
that's a bar.
It's a bar and
Gotcha.
another bar
So it
and
moves
the other one.
up.
So the A minor, the A, and the G7 is one action you have to perform.
Gotcha.
The B minor and F is another action, and combined it's turning into a letter. The second row is also one letter. It's one action, one long
Gotcha.
action, combining in a letter, and the third line is two actions. They combine one letter also.
Okay. And does this benefit me if I play this at all, or if I play it, it's just
Uh,
going to sound terrible?
well, for the people who are listening, it's called ugly song. So if you
Uh-huh.
played it, it will sound like an ugly song.
Yeah.
But if you solve it, it's a clear message.
Oh, oh. So if I solve it, it's
And,
a. Okay.
yeah, and I haven't played it, so I guess
So
I
I
guess
should
if
not
you
be
play
playing
it,
it.
it's not nice.
Okay. So one thing that you're going to realize with this is I am not good at puzzles. So I'm going to need help. It's very bizarre.
Okay,
I'm good at building puzzles and thinking through the thought process, but in a vacuum sometimes I
okay,
struggle.
I'm giving you a hint. Normally, if you do a treasure hunt, you get clues and you have to connect the dots,
Yep. Okay.
and the chords are the dots, and you have to connect them.
Oh, interesting. I
Ooh.
like it.
Ah,
Okay. So if I'm
so,
okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take A minor, the chords, and I'm going to take G7 and I'm going to put them all on a fret. I'm going to draw it out right now, and I'm going to see if that works. And so you have A minor, which is in the top, which is basically two dots on the.
and actually, do you have the? Let me see. Ah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. A minor, G7.
Let's give this a shot and
Yeah.
see if I have. That's correct. So when I look at G7, G7 is here, here, here. But I don't know if that tells me anything.
But remember what I said. A chord
Uh huh.
is a dot.
A chord is one dot.
Yeah, and you have to connect one chord to the other. You have to connect one dot to the other. So you have an A minor and you have a G7. And
Yes.
you physically have to. Um,
Let me. I'll move it to myself here as I. So I have an A minor, and then I have a G7. Wait, is that? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that sounds good. But you only have to actually you only have to use these two papers.
You don't need me. You just need the
Yeah,
papers.
well, yeah, for fun, of course. It's not nice for the viewers
Oh,
that you play.
I'm gonna keep trying to play them. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a letter, basically, because you said it's a three-letter, and
Yeah. So
it involves connecting the dots.
yeah.
As the people that watch this or continue to watch this are going to realize, I am struggling. So any help, if people want to jump in, the
Yeah.
couple people that are watching, by all means, help me. And you don't have to
Yes.
hold those sheets up. I have them literally
Oh
up
yeah. Of
on
course
the
you have to do
screen.
that.
Yeah, you are sandwiched between two very large sheets of paper.
And am I holding them right now?
I don't know, I can't tell. Um, and so, okay, so we have A minor, G7, and I might need more help with this. So if
Okay.
I
You're gonna wait that people are gonna send you a comment, or do I have to give you a
No,
hint?
you're going to have to give me a hint.
Okay.
Just because
So
people might watch this retroactively later
so
and
if
they're
you've
going to
got
be.
a piece of paper and you've got two dots and you connect them, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, so I
If you
just connect those dots and I make like a little diagonal
Yeah. So
line.
right now you have an A minor and a G7, and where are they on your paper on this paper?
So A minor and G7 basically looks like here. I'll hold up my. Let me get to me. So I end up having uh,
Ah,
that.
so what you're doing, you're using the diagram, and now you're putting those both chords in one diagram, and I'm going to show you one example. So you've got the A minor
Yep.
here,
Oh, I
and
was doing an A. There was my mistake. Oh, wait a
and,
second.
and where's the G7?
So the G7 is all the way in
Yeah.
the bottom right.
So connect.
Oh, so I'm connecting
Oh,
the actual on the thing. What I was doing was I was taking it a step further. I was doing a common mistake that I think a lot of people do. I was thinking too hard about this. So
yeah,
the direction that I ended up going was like, I need to draw these frets out. I need to draw the dots on the fretboard, and I need to try to combine them. So
yeah.
when I draw a line between A minor and G7, it crosses over B7 and E. Correct?
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
A
yeah,
and yeah, A minor
yeah,
G7 is B7 and
yeah,
E.
yeah. And then the second action on this line is B minor F.
Okay, so then if I draw a line between, I wonder if I can. I probably can't draw it on here. So if I have B minor and F, if I'm drawing between, it gives me C and EM. E minor,
But
correct?
you get physically two lines.
Basically two lines.
Yeah, one from
Yeah,
A
so I have a
minor to
cross, right? It makes an X. Ah!
ah,
Aha! So I've
yeah.
made the letter X. Oh, this is great. This is like a bigger version of mine, which was on the fretboard, which also could be really cool. Okay, so now that I've kind of broken this thing open a little bit, it's just a matter of figuring it out. So I got A minor to A, which has like A minor 7 is in the middle. Let me look. I'm trying to draw this out. I don't have this thing in front of me, so I can't draw it out. So I have X the first one, and then A minor to A has that in the middle, and then
Uh,
D minor. Oh gosh.
which line are you now doing? You're doing A minor.
Yeah. So I'm drawing out the next letter. So A minor to A, and then that makes a horizontal short
Ah, yeah.
line, and then D minor to E7.
Yes.
D minor to E7 is like a middle one, and then G to F is, oh, this is cool. Okay, so it's another short one, and then F to A minor. Oh, so that makes an O or a 0, so I'm assuming it's an O.
Almost.
Almost.
The A minor to F or the F to A minor is a straight line, and the other
Oh, it makes a
way
D.
yes,
Oh, yes, because it goes that way. Ah, I got it. So I have X and then D. And the final one is BC, which is a one line. So B to C, which is a small one. And then B7 to G minor is another small one. So that looks like a T. So XDT
yes,
looks like the correct. And then I need to shift it over once in the alphabet, because that's what's capo is +1, Caesar Cipher +1. And so that's Y, C, D, E, and then T, or E, S, T. Yes. Wait.
Oh, I might have made a mistake here.
Oh yes! Ah, I know. That's totally okay. I got it though by accident, and it was yes. And it,
Oh, you needed another letter
yes.
because I just made it during my guitar lesson. So that's
No,
uh,
it's
it's
totally
very good
fine.
thing they didn't see that. So
I
you
know.
needed the letter the
You.
R.
Oh yes. Yeah. R Y E R, which would have been a big pain to put together. And that's okay. These things, like I built mine this
So
morning.
playtesting,
You built.
playtest.
I know playtesting is important. You built yours this morning. I built mine. None of these things ever go out without being tested by somebody like this. So I'd be like, "Hey,
Yeah,
Yahin, I think we need to change the shift one, or we have to figure out an R." But even then, once you get the Y and the E, people won't even get to the R because there's only one letter that it's going to
yeah,
be, and it's going to be yes. And so you have that, but it is very tricky. Oh, that was fun. There's so much you can do with music and notes, and
yeah.
it's interesting how ours were similar, but also completely different,
And
right?
I think what because you already have some knowledge about the ukulele and how that works, and that's what happened now is that you think too hard.
Yep,
And people who don't know this, they just see some chords and they see the names, and the only thing I think they can do is connect those lines.
yep,
And what I didn't do is write something that said connect the chords or connect the dots.
yeah.
In another version or maybe a hint, I can put a line, something like that, and then they know what to do. Right now, you have to think a little bit
It's
more.
tricky because with connect the dots, I definitely because the dots are on the
Yeah,
chords, right? And so you'd have to be very tricky about
yeah,
like
yeah.
connect the dots, but it's not the dots that you think.
No,
And so, but basically, that's what playtesting is. And I talked to PG Law, who does a lot of playtesting, and it's so fascinating. With you send this to people that are musically inclined, and then you send it to people who are not, and then you send it to people who love puzzles, and then you send it to people who don't. And you need to be able to tweak these to have your easy thing. Like when you go back to me playing, right? The easy first thing is I put up tabs, and maybe it's not even me playing because then my fingers block some of the view. And then you make it a little bit harder and you remove the tabs and they have to find the tabs somewhere else and then connect those two
hmm,
things. Or you make it even harder where they have just the music that says this is an A, this is a B. And then you make it very hard where it's just me playing. Be like, tell me the
yeah,
password. So it goes to show you there are different levels. Oh man, that was a lot of fun. Great job.
yeah.
Perfect.
Yours too.
Thank you. So we are running short on time. We are almost done. The last thing I always like to ask is I like to ask, where can people find you? What should they do? I wanted to double check. So if I'm in the States, am I able to purchase one of your treasure hunts, or is it pretty much strictly for your region right now?
Yeah, actually, yes. There are two options right now. There's a online treasure hunt, and I created that one when the COVID crisis just started, and I thought, okay, let's make another online game as well. And that game exists of some puzzles and also some actions you have to do. You have to use some software. You have to do some searching on the internet. So what you're actually doing is the game is called Job Offer Junior Treasure Hunter. So
Yep.
you're applying for a position of a junior treasure hunter at Modern Treasure Hunt,
Uh huh.
and you have to prove yourself.
Ah
So you're
yes.
not going to go to a meeting where you have to talk to me, but you have to show me that you can find the location of a treasure. And lots of people are playing that already worldwide. And the other one, this game is normally when I send it to the US, I think it's like 29
Shipping.
euro shipping cost, and that's including a track and trace. But I always do that because then I can see if it's stuck somewhere. And right now, sometimes it takes a long time because last week in the news it was I don't know if you saw it also, but the other country said that a lot of drugs were transported in packages from the Netherlands to anywhere else, also
Oh
to the UK, and then they did a test here at the border, and I think like from the 500 packages they opened, maybe 80% had drugs in there.
oh my gosh, that is
So,
a
so
lot.
I've sent some packages to the USA, and sometimes it's really quick. Sometimes it takes a little bit long because then they have to process it and see what's inside because there's a bottle inside, but there's no liquid inside.
Yeah.
So I think the scans, they think, well, what's happening? What's in there? What I hope, and up until now, it's always no problem, because there could be puzzles in the box everywhere, and that they don't mess it up. But right now it's okay. And what I did, because in 1 week I'm going on vacation, and
You
I
can
have
say
some,
holiday. You said holiday. We had
yeah,
a whole
holiday,
conversation about
vacation,
it.
holiday.
Yeah.
I'm going away with my family, and I've got some English boxes left, and I said, okay, you can buy it now, and shipping to the USA is, I think, just €5, and shipping in Europe is for free.
Oh wow, that's great.
So if people are watching, you can order now.
Yes, you can order now before you go on holiday for a while, and
Yeah,
everything gets put on pause.
yeah.
Um, Well, that's great. Thank you so much for joining me. This was a lot of fun. And
We,
so, if you are interested, head over to Modern Treasure Hunt. There is a digital version and a physical version. And by all means, let me know how it is. I'll probably end up picking one up, even though, I've been hit hard by COVID, but I'm still trying to support and, do fun things. And then
mhm.
otherwise, I will be back next Friday with another guest. And I'm going to keep these going. So, thank you guys so
Yeah,
much.
really, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. And you have a wonderful day.